Poppy Playtime, a horror game that takes place in a toy factory where a giant stuffed monster pursues you. Bendy and the Ink Machine fans certainly felt at home playing through this creepy factory in Chapter 1. As you press on in the factory, Huggy Wuggy, this stuffed monster, pursues you into the vents in a heart-pounding chase scene. It happens so quick, but how do the developers pull it off? How does this game work behind the scenes? Well, here on HorrorScoped, you know we love to dissect your favorite horror games and break them. So let's take a look at how Huggy Wuggy was brought to life in Chapter 1 of Poppy Playtime. We'll be heading out of bounds and breaking certain aspects of the game, so I hope you enjoy. When Chapter 1 starts, we appear in the lobby of the factory, and our goal is essentially to get our grab pack as quickly as possible. Even though the whole grab pack is modeled, we only hold the little gun portion of it in the game. Feeling like the Cable Crow from Zardy's Maze, we're able to shoot off our hand and have it grab onto things. Unlike the Cable Crow from Zardy's Maze, we can't use this bad boy like a hookshot and call ourselves Link. However, this enables us to solve lots of puzzles, and so we press on. If we take the camera out of bounds, we can see what the outskirts of the facility look like. Obviously, things aren't modeled out here, but surprisingly, the factory sign is though. Heading back inside, it's time to encounter the main antagonist of Chapter 1, Huggy Wuggy. This enormous monster towers over us in the main room, and yet doesn't come to life to attack us even though he could. So we proceed on and solve the puzzle. And while doing that, the game developers simply unload Huggy. I was hoping I could see him scurry off, but this isn't the case. After you restore the power, there is a foreground scare that normally takes place where Huggy's arm slithers into a door. The funny thing is, behind this door is actually Huggy T-posing in dominance. The arm is the only thing animated, and if we walk down the hallway with our camera displaced, we can see what this really looks like up close. His arm just sort of slithers and clips through the wall, and then this model just unloads. A simple but powerful effect that creates unease with the player. At this point, we need to get our other hand so we can double fist the rest of the chapter. And Huggy is up in the vent at this point. This is how it looks as Huggy vanishes. Super spooky stuff. After some collecting, we get our second tool and move onward to the next encounter with the fluffy dude. In this first set of vents, we need to restore power so that we can proceed forward. But there's something pretty interesting that I discovered with this area. Normally, after clearing it, you start getting pushed forward into the next room. But if you constantly jump like a madman, you can stop yourself from falling down below. And now you're free to roam the vents. And congrats, if we take this path right here, drumroll please, a solid black screen. That then drops us into the great beyond as we plummet deeper and deeper until our entire world grows dark. Ah yes, eternal darkness, my old friend. We meet again. Proceeding forward, normally this time, it's kinda neat to see the toy pieces moving through the tubes. In each of these large robot mouths, the developers simply unload the previous toy parts or model and swap it out with a new one. We then take our toy, put it on the scanner, and unleash the beast that is Huggy Wuggy. So something really funny happened the first time I got jump scared by this monster. Normally, it is supposed to show the face of the monster up close, but instead, the game threw me all the way across the room at a wall. I honestly wasn't thinking and I dropped down like an idiot, but I probably could have stayed up there without the monster killing me. But while we're down here, why don't we see what the jump scare actually looks like? Normally, this tall lad bites her face off, but if we swap the camera angle, this is actually what is happening. His body leans forward and he freezes in place as the death animation quickly plays. Huggy also walks out of the darkness in this hallway, but this hallway actually leads back to the main room he was in. There's some black textures that block the route. But if we were to move through these black textures, you can see that this hallway takes us back to the start. Another weird thing that happened after I died was that I respawned without my grab pack. So even if I made it through the vents, I died at the end with no tool to save myself. But into the vents we go, because quite honestly, this is the most interesting part of Poppy Playtime. Traveling through the vents, the first time we encounter Huggy Wuggy, he is behind a screen. We see him shuffle to the left, but if we were behind him, this is what it would look like. The room behind him is bright and leads out into the sky. And even though it looks like he is following us, he actually runs into the sky and then eventually unloads. The developers really took advantage of the complexity of the vents in this situation. They are a giant maze in the sky essentially. And within this maze, there are actually multiple Huggies waiting to be activated by the player's position. Until then, they are frozen in place, just like a toy waiting to be turned on. It's interesting because the sound effects for Huggy pursuing you in the vents plays on loop, regardless if the monster is activated or not. Nearby, we can find another Huggy Wuggy with a backwards head floating outside of the vent. Dang man, rough night. In fact, we can see both at the same time if we position our camera right. Once a player proceeds forward, these monsters will be activated and warped into place within this maze of vents. If we let Huggy get us, this is what it looks like in third person with a different camera view. Definitely not as scary as it looks in first person, that's for sure. But we still have one mystery left to check out, because at the end of this pursuit, Huggy Wuggy gets smashed by a block and falls into the darkness. So what actually happens to him? Is there anything down below? Well, for starters, Huggy leaves a lot of quote-unquote blood when he falls. If we take a look up close, we can see the blood splatter on this metal railing. But if we head deeper beneath the level, we can see the Huggy essentially gets frozen in time. The game obscures this with a black fog layer, but once the animation is complete, they just let this furry little bugger float out in space forever. A fitting end for a spooky childhood monster. I also forgot to let go of the box, so my hand was way down there too. When I retracted it, it took almost 10 seconds to make it back to my character, which was pretty funny. With this, we proceed forward through the flower to the end of our twisted tale, as we come face to face with Poppy. I hope you enjoyed this bizarre look at this horror game, and if you did, consider subscribing right now for more horror videos just like this one. Cheers for now.